You're listening to Taste for Truth Weight Loss Encouragement. I'm your host, Barb Raveling. Hey friend, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here in the month of December. I hope you're having a cozy time, enjoying the holidays, enjoying all the holiday lights. I will be at my mom's house when this comes out. We have moved to St. George, Utah for our next rotation, which is where my mom and my brother and sister-in-law live. And we'll be living with my mom in the same neighborhood too as my brother and sister-in-law. So just really looking forward to that, looking forward to getting involved in a church there, and looking forward to some nice warm winter weather and hiking. We have some hiking and camping trips planned already down there. So we're excited for that new place. Plus just excited to be around people we know, family. That's been one of the hardest parts for me of this travel life is not being around community, people we really know. So I'm just looking forward to that. And today, what I want to talk about is 7 reasons we gain our weight back. And I know how demoralizing this is because I've lost so much weight and gained so much weight so many times. And even though I was never more than 25 pounds overweight, it was just so demoralizing, defeating. I felt like food controlled me. I felt like I would never get over it. I did all the binging, the secret eating, all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know how many times after losing the weight, I gain it all back and I think, why did I do that? And you'd have to go to all that work again at some point anyway. I never did it right away, but we all know it's hard to lose weight. So today I want to look at 7 reasons we gain our weight back and then 7 things we can do to keep ourselves from gaining the weight back. So let's start with the 7 reasons. Number 1, we let go of boundaries once we lose our weight. So think of it. Have you ever lost a bunch of weight without setting some sort of boundaries? Okay. Maybe you did hunger fullness. So you did intuitive eating, or maybe you did a low carb, or maybe you went on Weight Watchers, but you did something, you had some sort of boundaries that you followed, and that's how you lost the weight. But here's the problem. Once we lose the weight, so often we just let go of all those boundaries. I used to do that all the time. There's 2 ways we can let go of them. One is that we do it consciously. So we think, yay, time to live it up again. And we go back to eating what we want, when we want. In fact, the whole time we're dieting and the whole time we're depriving ourselves and saying no to things we don't want to say no to, we're thinking, oh, I can't wait till I am off this diet so I can go back to eating again, right? And so then we haven't changed any of our thinking and we gain it all back. Another way we let go of boundaries once we lose our weight is we do it without even realizing we're doing it. And I've talked to a lot of women who've done this. So let's say, actually there's 2 different examples that I've noticed, and that's with counting carbs or with Weight Watchers. So I've talked to women who count carbs. They have this certain limit. I've never counted carbs, so I don't know what the limit is, but they have so many carbs they eat each day. So they're really faithful to that while they're on the diet. But as soon as they're off, it's like, oh yeah, I live a low carb diet, because they kind of know how many carbs are in things. So they still kind of try and eat low carb, but they don't have a set amount of carbs. So they haven't switched over to 3 meals a day. They haven't switched to intuitive eating or some sort of non-diet set of boundaries, but they aren't following their quote diet set of boundaries either. And so they don't really have primary boundaries in place, and so they gain their weight back. Same thing with Weight Watchers. With Weight Watchers, you kind of get used to eating the free foods, fruits, vegetables, chicken. And so people will go off Weight Watchers. They won't switch over to a different set of boundaries, but they'll still kind of they still have in mind, oh, I can eat as much fruit as I want, or, I can eat all these things as much as you want. But since they don't follow the points, they gain their weight back. So if you're gaining your weight back, ask yourself, do I still have lifelong boundaries? And then second question to ask yourself is, do I really have lifetime boundaries? Am I really following my boundaries, or am I just taking a few principles from what I learned? Actually, you guys could do this even like say with hunger fullness. So let's say, you were following those boundaries perfectly. You lost all your weight, and then you're like, oh, I think I'm kind of hungry, or, you're not very careful about it anymore. Or 3 meals a day, you just start having, more snacks, or you have a little second helping that you weren't planned. So we do with any set of boundaries. Okay, number 2, we switch to different boundaries and don't go through the necessary work to learn how to follow our boundaries. Okay, most of us don't want to go on a diet all our lives, right? Or let's say you go off sugar to lose the weight. You don't want to be off sugar all your life. So what we do is we switch to a different set of boundaries. So let's say I lost my weight with Weight Watchers, which I did. And then I switched over to 3 meals a day. Well, learning how to do 3 meals and 1 snack to maintain your weight is different than counting points. It's more loosey-goosey. So switching to a different set of boundaries without going through the necessary work to learn how to follow them, that's going to make us gain our weight back. Okay, and a third reason we gain our weight back is that we have some new trial in our lives that makes us feel like eating. So maybe when we lost the weight, life was going smoothly, or we had a certain trial we kind of knew how to handle, but then life goes along and we're going to have different trials throughout our lives. And a lot of times when something new happens, we emotionally eat, we gain our weight back. Okay, this happened all over probably the world during the pandemic. So many people reported weight gain during the pandemic because that was a trial, right? And if we have a tendency to emotionally eat during a trial, we're going to do it during this new trial that comes along. Or, maybe you're having a health crisis, or somebody you love is having some sort of crisis, or, the world is looking a little bit scary right now, or any sort of thing. Or maybe you start working on some new goal and your tendency is to procrastinate with this goal. So if we have a new trial in our life, that often will make us gain the weight back. Okay, so that's another reason we struggle. Okay, fourth reason we gain the weight back is we stick to our boundaries most of the year, but then we go off during holidays and vacations. Okay, so as I'm taping this, we're just about ready to begin the holiday season. We have in the United States, we have Thanksgiving coming up in 2 days. I'll be in Billings for Thanksgiving with my 2 daughters and my son-in-law. So I'm looking forward to that. But what we do is we give ourselves permission to kind of go off the boundaries during the holidays, during vacations. Okay, so what happens when we do that is we gain a few pounds a year. A lot of people gain like 3 pounds at Christmas time. Okay, 3 pounds is not a big deal. But if you do that every year, in 10 years, it'll be 30 pounds. So it's important to keep following those boundaries during the holidays, during vacations, to have some sort of boundaries. Maybe you'll loosen them up for the day on the holiday or something, but you just have to be careful you don't set that little trend in motion where every year you gain a few pounds over the holidays or a few pounds when you go on vacation. Okay, number 5, we introduce sugar and or flour when that was part of the reason we lost the weight to begin with. So I've talked to so many women. Well, I guess I shouldn't say so many women. I've talked to a few women who have lost their weight without renewing their minds. And I think in every case that's happened, it's been a woman who has given up sugar and flour. Because if you give up the things that really tempt you, you're not going to be tempted as much. Sure, it's going to be hard the first week or 2 until you get into the habit. For some people, it might be a month or 2. But at a certain point, you're going to stop craving that stuff. And so you haven't really changed the way you think. You still think, I should have more than one. Like, that was so good, I should have another. Or you still think this will make me feel better. In fact, a lot of times, if you're on one of those diets where you can only eat certain things, but you can eat as much of them as you want, you'll still emotionally eat, but you just emotionally eat with those healthy foods, right? And so if you haven't changed your thinking and then you reintroduce the sugar and flour or whatever it was you took out once you lose the weight, there's just a huge tendency to gain all the weight back. And even if you are renewing your mind, because there are some addictive tendencies with sugar, you could still, tend to start eating more and more and more. And that's another reason we gain our weight back. I'm not saying you have to go off sugar to lose weight or you have to stay off sugar for the rest of your life. I'm definitely not saying that, but I am saying that is the reason a lot of people gain their weight back. I have talked to many people who gained their weight back because they went back on sugar. In fact, I just talked to one person who she made the decision. I can't remember what exactly it was, but she had one sweet and then that set off 6 or 9 months of eating and she gained 20 pounds. So that happens. That's so common. Okay, the sixth reason we gain our weight back is we lose it with self-control and or obsession, and we don't renew. Okay, so there's two types of people here. There's people like me who are, more the indulgent type, and like I'm never tempted to over-exercise because I would find that super boring, and I'm just not a person who, really grabs hold of things and makes sure I'm like doing everything right? But if I lose my weight, which I always used to do in the past, if every once in a while I'd muster up enough self-discipline to lose weight, since I wasn't renewing my mind or changing my thinking, I would gain it back. Okay, the second type of person is somebody who's really good at doing things like following boundaries. In fact, if they make the commitment to go on a diet or some sort of weight loss plan, they're going to follow it. They're going to do all those things they're supposed to do. The problem is the temptation for that person is that it's really easy to start obsessing over it and just always be thinking of it and always, counting all the little, calories and making sure you have the exact amount of calories. And, a person like me can go on Weight Watchers and not obsess about it. But some people do obsess about it. Okay, that is really exhausting. And so a lot of times, either the person like me or the other person will gain our weight back. One, because they're too exhausted. They can't keep that up all their life. And then people like me, because I just don't have any self-control to begin with. And so, of course, I'm going to gain my weight back if I haven't really changed my thinking. And I've also given up boundaries too, usually. But even if I haven't given up boundaries, eventually I'm going to go back to eating all the time because I'm not naturally self-controlled in that area. The seventh reason, the last reason we gain our weight back is we start believing new lies and don't take the time to renew. So with this reason, we've actually have renewed to lose the weight. So, with my example, I renewed hundreds of times. And so I really believed that, it's better to eat with boundaries. But then once I lost the weight, I started believing some new lies. So I had to be careful with those lies. And I'll talk more about those at the end of the podcast. Okay, so what do we do? I mean, you listen to this list and you think, wow, that's so discouraging. I'll never get over this. Just go back through that list. How many reasons applied to you of all those 7 reasons? There's a lot of reasons we gain our weight back. But there is hope. We can do all things through God who strengthens us. And he who began a good work in us will complete it. So let's look at some things we can do to help keep our weight off. And the first one is to keep relying on God for help with life. Because if we can do all things through him who strengthens us, that means we have to go to him for the strengthening. So we have to go to God when life is hard. We need to go to God. We need to pour out our troubles before him. We need to ask him for help. We need to, listen to our emotions, see what our emotions are telling us, and then talk to God about all those issues. So we're kind of developing a habit of turning to God for help with life instead of running to the refrigerator or, turning on our phone or going to Netflix. So this is just kind of like a way of life. And the second way is to renew often about each new trial that comes up. So here's what the people who come to me say. They say, I'm so thankful I started renewing habit to deal with my weight loss because now this new trial's come up and I have that tool to kind of understand the new trial, take off the lies, put on the truth, and to see this trial from a biblical perspective. So the second way to keep our weight off is to renew often about each new trial that comes up. So we go to God for help with life. We pour out our troubles, we visit with him, we gain his comfort, but we also renew our mind. So in a way, that first tip is like going to God on an emotional level. And the second tip is going to God on a cognitive thinking level. So with this one, we're saying, hey, God, this is what I'm believing about this trial. Is this true? And he'll help give us the truth. That will help us see it differently. We'll be more accepting of it. It'll be easier to live in peace and joy. And as a side benefit, not only will we grow in our character, we'll become more mature when we do that, but we also will be less likely to gain our weight back because we won't, if we're not all stuck in turmoil and worry or anger or stress, we'll be less likely to emotionally eat. And renewing our mind helps take those emotions away because we see things from a biblical perspective. Okay, third one is just kind of a practical tool, and that's to catch any weight gain early. So it's a lot easier to lose 3 pounds than 30 pounds. And it's easier to lose 30 pounds than 100 pounds. So you might be a person who's just said, no, I don't ever want to step on the scale. That just stresses me out. So if you're that person, just kind of pay attention to your clothes. And if they start feeling a little tight, then, start being careful. Now, this is a problem for people like me who always wear stretchy clothes. I don't think I have one thing in my wardrobe that's not stretchy. And since we move around, we move every 3 months, when we first, I think it was 6 months in, I thought to myself, you know what, I should probably get a scale because I didn't have a scale and I couldn't weigh myself and I really didn't know if I was gaining weight or not. So I weigh myself about once a week now, and I have to try and remember to do it because I just don't even think of it. But I need to, that helps me see, okay, are you about the right weight? And if I'm up more than a few pounds, and I'm a small person, I'm only 5'2". If I was bigger, if I was taller or weighed more, then I might make it more like 5 pounds so if I'm just that little bit overweight, then I just start being more careful, trying to watch what I eat a little bit more, because I'm on 3 meals in one day. So it's not like I know exactly how much I'm eating. So catching weight gain early, if you have to go back to renewing again, go back to renewing again. I don't usually have to, but I think, you might have to. It's okay if you do, it's worth it. Okay, number 4, continue to have firm, lifelong boundaries. I can't emphasize how important it is to have some sort of boundaries with food. If you're a person who loves food, you're not opposed to large quantities, and you have a tendency to eat emotionally. So you have to have those firm, lifelong boundaries. And we talked about a couple of the reasons that we eat, that we either let go of the boundaries altogether, we kind of think we're having boundaries when we really aren't, or we switch to different boundaries that we're not used to, okay? So continue to have firm, lifelong boundaries. And if you have switched to a different set, like if you've switched to 3 meals and 1 snack, and that's not what you use to lose your weight, then you're going to have to actually put quite a bit of work into learning how to maintain your weight with those boundaries, okay? So I know some people, what they've done is they've had 3 meals and 1 snack. And at the end of the day, like if they lost their weight with Weight Watchers points or calories, at the end of the day, they'll look back, they'll add up the calories, see about where they are. And they'll do that for a week or 2 just to see where they are. Or you're going to have to keep renewing your mind because you're going to have different lies that'll spring up. So you might say things like, I'll just say this is part of my meal and it's okay to eat, when it really wasn't. It's something you added to your meal. So let's say if you're eating 3 meals a day and no second helpings, that'll be one of the lies we believe, that this isn't really a second helping. If I thought about it, I would have had this. Or, we say different things. So you might have to renew your mind. I'd say maybe for a month or so. Once you switch to a different set of boundaries, I think I would keep renewing my mind for at least a month, maybe 2 months, until you learn how to maintain your weight with that set of boundaries. Okay, number 5, be very careful about reintroducing sugar if you lost the weight without it. And so by careful, I mean either don't do it or do it very carefully. Like I remember I interviewed one girl on the podcast who, what she did is whenever she had sugar, she put it on the calendar. And so it wasn't even a weekly event, I don't think. Maybe it was a couple times a month. So she'd put it on the calendar. She'd renew her mind both before she ate the sugar and after she had the sugar. So that's a good example of somebody who's being careful about reintroducing it. And you might, even if you reintroduce it and you're doing fine, you're never even tempted. I definitely went through a season like that where, I could have all the Christmas cookies I wanted in the house. I just wasn't even tempted. But my life was pretty smooth at that time, okay? My life isn't that smooth right now. And if I had a bunch of Christmas cookies in the house, I think I'd probably eat them. So this might change with different stages in your life, depending on what the trials you're going through. So yeah, just be careful with sugar. Okay, number 6, be careful during vacations and holidays. And that's a nice little encouragement to me as I actually speak to you guys. It's the holidays. I'm going to be at the holidays. We're going to have 2 weeks off. This is my husband's last day of work, actually about a week and a half. And then we're going to head to, Billings for Thanksgiving. And then head down towards St. George. I don't know if we might do some cold weather camping. We haven't really decided what we're going to do yet, but you guys have your own little holiday celebrations right now. So just try and be careful. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it to gain the weight and have to lose it again, right? I hate losing weight. I just think it's so much sacrifice, right? So be kind to ourselves. Let's not put ourselves in a position where we're going to have to worry about that. And not only that, it's the craving. That's another thing I hate, is the craving. So if I started eating too much sugar during the holidays, I'd just be craving it all the time. I found that if I have sweets more than once a week, maybe twice at the most, then I'll start craving them all the time. And I don't like that craving, so it's not even worth it. Okay, and the last tip is to check to see if you still believe any lies that make you overeat, and also any new lies that crop up. So when I was renewing, when I was truth journaling, I got rid of a lot of lies, right? I just don't even believe them anymore. But there's still maybe a couple lies that I don't think I ever quite got rid of. Like maybe the one lie I didn't get rid of is, that's so good, I should have another. Okay, that little lie, that's so good, I should have another, is probably not going to lead to a binge, but it'll definitely lead to a second helping. So if I really want to work on that lie and keep renewing it. So in other words, every time I, ate a second helping or ate a snack that I wasn't supposed to have, and that's why I believed it. I'd say, that was so good, I should have another. I'd write that down, and then I'd write down a truth, and the truth will look different each time. So I might say, that was so good, I have to be really careful to not have another. Or that was so good, I should enjoy each and every single bite and just focus on how great it is, because I get far more enjoyment out of that than I do with having another, because usually the second one's never as good as the first. So you say different things each time. So think to yourself, if you're in a spot right now where you've already lost your weight, just ask yourself, are there any lies I'm still believing that I haven't quite gotten over yet? And those would be lies you could work on. It doesn't take much work to write down one belief and one truth. That takes less than a minute, and it's shocking how much it will change you. Okay, I do have a few new lies you might believe. I mentioned that earlier in the podcast that I'd be bringing that up. And one is, it's okay to break my boundaries because I'm free from the control of food now. And I would say that is definitely a lie I have believed. And here's the truth. I may be free from the control of food, but that doesn't mean I can't gain my weight back. And I will gain it back if I consistently eat too much. And not only that, I can go back into a way of life where I kind of think I have boundaries. I tell everybody I have boundaries, but I don't really have boundaries in practice. And do I really want to live that life? It's a little dangerous to live that life, so I have to be careful. I can't remember what I called that in my Taste for Truth Bible study. I put that as one of the stages in one of those lessons. I think I called it maybe living recklessly in the midst of victory or something like that. Okay, number 2, here's one more lie we often believe, is this little bit of blank won't hurt. So it could be sugar, right? And here's the truth. While it's possible this little bit of sugar won't hurt, it's also possible that this little bit of sugar will set in motion weeks or months or years of overeating. So I should think carefully if I really want to do this, and then make a plan for it if I decide to do it, and go back to renewing if necessary. So I don't want to make decisions like that spur of the moment because I'm someplace where there's really good treats there. Because the truth is, I'm a person who tends to overeat sugar. I just love it too much. So I'll probably have to be careful for it with all of my life. And a lot of you listening, sugar's not that big of a deal for you, but it's savory, or it's French fries or potato chips. So anytime I say sugar, replace it in your mind with French fries or potato chips. I guess I should have told you that sooner, though, because I'm almost through the podcast episode. But anyway, you can go back and think that way. Okay, and then the last one, we've already talked about this too. The last lie we often believe after we lose the weight is, I still have boundaries. So I actually believe I have boundaries, when in practice and actuality, I don't have boundaries. Or I might have them set out, like I might say, these are my boundaries, 3 meals and 1 snack, but I don't follow them. Or I might be kind of telling myself I have boundaries when really I'm just kind of cutting down on carbs or something like that. So I might put for the truth, I don't actually have boundaries. I have intentions, more fruit and vegetables, for example, but I don't have primary boundaries that tell me how often or how much I can eat. If I really want to keep this weight off, I need to have boundaries and follow them. Boundaries keep me safe, and boundaries actually lead to a more fun and exciting life. Because don't we all think, oh, my life will be so boring if I eat with control? But the truth is, a lot of ways that we try to get excitement are things that we will regret later. So they might be things God doesn't want us to do. They might be, like lusty sorts of things, like lusts of flesh, like I just have to have this food. I'm not willing to live without it. And, God wants us to hold all things with open hands and keep him first. And so having boundaries, it's kind of, in some ways, if that's something I struggle with, if that's something I go to for help with life, it's something I can do to help me be more inclined to go to God for help with life. Because, isn't that what we all want? We want a life where we are close to God and we're turning him for help for life. We're growing in our character. We're growing to love others better, to sacrifice to love others well, to have God first. And this little trial we have with the whole eating thing, that is something that God can use to mature us and draw us near to him. So as you go through the holidays, if you're listening to this right when the podcast comes out, or if you listen to it later as you're just going through life, my prayer is that God will help you develop a renewing habit, that you'll be faithful to it if you need to lose the weight. And then if you've already lost it and you're maintaining it, that he'll help guide you and show you how to stay free from the control of food. Because again, this isn't all about being skinny or looking good, or even about being healthy, even though, that's definitely a worthwhile goal. In a way, it's about loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and continue to hold food and skinny, both those things, and actually even our health, really, all those things with open hands. But as we do that, as we keep God first, we will naturally grow in the area of self-control, and we will have that side benefit of breaking free from the control of food, staying free from the control of food, and, having, more health in our life because we are free from that. So I hope you guys have a good week following God, following our boundaries, and I will talk to you next time.